everybody, it's Jeff Gibby. I'm back in the studio today. I want to talk to you a little bit about a project we've been working on this summer and is now available. It's called Our Favorite Trade Setup for MetaStock. I wrote this initially to make it available to Vince Vora's students. Vince runs a company called tradingwins.com. Very, very good education company. And we made this product as a companion to their course. Basically, we made it and put it available to the students that went through the Vince Vora course on Our Favorite Trade. And it's been well received. It's been one of the most popular, it's been a very, very well-received product. And as a result of that, I decided to make it available to everybody and make it an official MetaStock add-on. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what it is, what it does, and how it works. And one of the things that I've learned about working with this company is I really like Vince and the trading wins and the methodologies that they create. As we go through this, you're going to notice that the methodologies he uses are not rocket science, to say the least. They're very, very practical, they're understandable, and very, very implementable. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what it is. This particular product is recommended for stocks. And if you're an option trader, that's great because you're going to be able to decide what direction you want to go on a stock, if you want to buy puts and calls. He also uses it with Forex, with futures, and it works on a number of different time frames as well. It incorporates a trend. I'm sure you've heard like the trend is your friend, or befriend the trend, or a rising tide lifts up boats. It uses engulfing bullish and bearish candlestick patterns, and it also employs money management through the use of stops and protecting your capital in that respect. So the first thing that we look at with this is we're looking to analyze the trend. And the way that Vince analyzes the trend in the training that he does is he looks at the 20-period moving average, as you see right here. And if that's sloping up, then we're going to call it an upward trend. If it's petering off like it is right here on the chart, we're not going to call that anything. But then as it starts to kind of weaken and kind of go back down below the trend, we're going to call that a bearish trend. So what we've done as part of the add-on is we've actually put in some calculations that look at the moving average. And that was the trickiest part of this particular product. Obviously, it's very, very visually easy to see where this slopes up. It's easy to see where it slopes down. But where do you start to call that slope up and down? So we actually created over the summer about 3 different versions of the slope calculation. And we finally found something that works across Forex and futures and stocks and options. And I'm pretty proud of the work that we did. But this was the trickiest part of this. How do you define this slope? What are you looking for? And where do you draw the line? And between the two of us, Vince and I must have looked at about 500 or 600 charts together, no kidding, to identify that trend. So the way we're going to use trend, obviously, if the trend is our friend and we want a rising tide to lift our boat, so to speak, is if the trend is up, if this moving average is pointing up, then we're going to be looking for the long signals. And we'll identify that on the chart just by this trend ribbon, slope positive or slope negative. We're basically telling you, okay, now the system is going to start to look for the long setups if the slope is positive, and it's going to look for the short setup if the slope is negative. That's it. That's that simple. For a setup, the setups that we're actually looking for is a bullish engulfing pattern in an uptrend, or a bearish engulfing pattern in a downtrend. And a bullish engulfing pattern is simply a pattern where the body of the current candle totally is bigger than the body of the previous day's candle. In addition to that, since it's bullish, it has to start at the bottom and then work its way to the top. So that would give you a bullish engulfing pattern. That's our setup bar. If we're in an uptrend, we're looking for that bullish engulfing pattern. Likewise, in the downtrend, what we're looking for is we're looking for a bearish engulfing pattern. So we're looking for the body of the current candle to be bigger than the body of the previous candle. And in addition, we're looking for it to start high and then work its way down, so it'll be a bearish engulfing pattern. And it's that simple. That's exactly the setup that we're looking for. We're looking for the uptrend, and then we look for a bullish engulfing pattern, and then we've got an official setup on the chart. Okay. The way we'd look for our triggers is we're going to look for a penetration of the setup bar's high before penetration of the low. So this is the same example. I'm going to show you this chart in MetaStock in just a second. Here's the setup day. We have this bullish engulfing pattern. Okay. And the very next day, in this particular example, it breaches the high, which triggers us into a trade. Now, it's important to note, if instead it penetrated the low, we'd actually invalidate that trade. It would not be something that we would trigger on. What we want is we want a penetration of the high before we get a penetration of the low of the setup bar. In the case of a bearish engulfing setup, obviously we're looking for the slope to be negative. We're looking for that bearish engulfing pattern, and we're looking for a penetration of the low. And I actually like that this is the example that I picked, because the trigger doesn't have to happen on the very next bar, or the very next day if you're looking at daily, the very next hour if you're looking at hourly. It can take a few bars to actually complete, but when that penetration happens, as long as this high hasn't been penetrated, that's going to give you a trigger. And in MetaStock, we identify that trigger just by putting a sell sign on the chart. Okay. If we trigger into trade like we did, we're going to place an initial stop. And the commentary that I'm going to show you when we go to the demo of MetaStock will actually tell you exactly the value for this. The stop, though, we're going to place is going to be below the low of the setup bar in the case of a long. So in the case of this example, what we would do is if we trigger into trade, we're going to put our initial stop right below this low of the setup bar. Likewise, if we're looking at a short signal, and we get into a short position, we're going to put our stop right above the high signal. So it's a very, very simple pattern. And let me go ahead and switch into MetaStock, and we can kind of show you a little bit of a chart for that. So I've got my chart of Nike up here. And as we were kind of talking about a little bit before, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can kind of see some more of the chart. Maybe pop that into view a little bit more. As long as this indicator is sloping up, we're going to go ahead and say that the slope is positive. In that particular scenario, the MetaStock program is only going to be looking for long positions. Okay. Likewise, when it starts to go down, and the slope starts to come down on Nike in this particular example, then we'll be looking for short examples. Okay. On the chart, what we're identifying, just going to kind of zoom in a little bit on the chart here. When we have a setup bar, what we're identifying is this is a setup bar. And the way we identify that on the chart is we put a little bit of a diamond right below the setup bar. When we have a trigger, basically, we're just going to give you a little bit of a buy signal. And we have, if you're familiar with MetaStock and you're familiar with some of the other products that I've been involved in developing, I love to include commentary in these to kind of help you remember why certain things are happening on a chart and what you should do with them. So let me go ahead and open up that commentary window. I'm going to come in here and go to Expert Advisor. I'm going to go ahead and click on Commentary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the commentary to this day. So you see this little triangle points to this little bar with the diamond. I've pointed it to the setup bar. And it's going to tell us that the favorite trade setup is currently signaling a long opportunity. Okay. To confirm this is a valid buying opportunity, you must wait for a trade above 88.94. A trade below 86.76 would invalidate this trade. So we're telling you right now, we want to trade above 88.94, which should be the high of this bar. And we want, if it trades below 86.76, which is the low of this bar, then it's not a valid trade. We go ahead and ignore that trade and wait for another setup opportunity. Traders interested in taking advantage of this opportunity should buy the stock, while option traders can consider intermediate-term call options 2 to 3 months before expiration, as these signals can last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Aggressive option traders will typically look at call options 2 to 3 strikes out of the money. He even goes as far as to tell you what type of delta to look for. And once long, you should place your initial stop-loss order. Like I was saying before, it's telling you exactly where the stop-loss order should be. In this case, it would be 86.76. Okay. If I go one more day over, here we have the trigger. And it's going to tell you in the commentary, the favorite trade setup is in a long trade. Okay. And then it kind of eyeballs the trade. At that particular time, you'd go ahead and put in your stop-loss. And as you go forward in time, there's not really too much to report other than we're in a long trade, and it'll say you're in a long trade. But when you get into the exit conditions and when the exit matches up, it's actually going to tell you, the favorite trade setup is currently indicating the end of a long opportunity. You should get out of the position. And that's how it works. It's very, very straightforward methodology. And during the 18 years of working with trading methodologies and trading systems, the ones I really, really like are the ones that are very, very straightforward. A big part of trading successfully is trading with discipline. And if you can understand why you're trading and the methods that you're using to get into the trade, it's going to be a lot better for you, especially if those methodologies work. In addition, we've also included, of course, explorations. One of the things about MetaStock is you can scan thousands of instruments and decide on which ones are the best ones or the ones you should be looking at today. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to open up our Power Console, and I've already loaded on the exploration screen, which I'm just going to make this full screen. In the list of scans that are available after you install Favorite Trade, you're going to see Favorite Trade Setups and Favorite Trade Triggers. So if you're like we are right now, after market close, and you want to find setup opportunities for tomorrow, you'd run the setup scan. It's going to basically go through all of the instruments you tell it to go through and identify just those that have a setup. If on the other hand, it's the middle of the day and you want to find something that's already triggered today, you could run the trigger scan, and that'll go in, look for all of the stocks that had a setup on the previous bar. In this case, we're doing a daily scan, but you can do different time frames, and are currently issuing a trigger. And so those are the two scans that are available. I did run these already against the optionable universe of stocks, and I will show you how to do that. Just select the ones you want to run. You can select both of them. If I come down here, I can actually select what group I want to run it against. So I just said, okay, run it against all of the optionable stocks. You don't need to worry about changing any of the options over here. You can change the interval, of course, to daily or hourly or weekly if you want. And you just start an exploration and let it run. And it took only a few minutes, but to save that time, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to show you what the report looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click here. I'll open up the report this way. And here we've got a list of the instruments that either had a long or short today. You can tell if they're a long or short. If they have a 1 in this column, it's going to be basically true for long. So these are setup conditions that had a long today. It doesn't surprise me. It's actually a fairly bullish day when I'm recording this video. So it doesn't surprise me that there's quite a few long entries and one exit entry. This SOAP is going to the SOAP column is actually going to tell you the calculation that we're using to determine the SOAP. So if you wanted to, you could kind of sort this based on the SOAP value. Obviously, Merrimack Pharmacy, or MACK.O, has the biggest SOAP, and MS has the littlest SOAP. Actually, SRCL would have the littlest SOAP, including the short positions. From here, you could just save. I'm basically going to save this list. I could actually add this to my list, but this is going to give me the list of securities that are valid or have a signal for today. And the way I like to look at these, I'm actually going to go through this process. I wasn't initially, but let's play a little bit with it. The way I'd actually kind of evaluate these signals is I'd go ahead and save this as a list. So I'm going to save all 6 of these as a list. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and this is going to be my demo list of OFTS. Okay, we'll go ahead and create this. So now when I come into my chart section, what I've got is I've got the list right here. I've got the demo list of OFTS that we just saved. And I'm just going to select the very first one, which would be affiliated managers. And I'll go ahead and open that. I'm going to apply the template Vora Favorite Trade Clean. I'll go ahead and click on the Open Chart button. And here we've got a long setup alert. You notice this pops up. If you're actually watching this real time, it'll pop up if there's a setup on a chart that you've got open. Go ahead and click OK to get rid of that. And now I can kind of see, I can take a look at this. If I click on evaluate it, see if it's something that I actually want to keep on my watch list for tomorrow, I can very, very easily go to the next security in that list just by clicking on this next instrument button here at the bottom of the chart. And that will take me to the next setup that was available. And that way I can kind of get a feel for the ones that I actually want to pay attention to for tomorrow. And that's really kind of how it works. It's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. And really, that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Let's recap a little bit of what's included. We've got an indicator. You can use it. There's a template that applies this particular indicator. It's called the Vora Favorite Trade Slope. We use it in our internal calculations to determine if the slope is rising or falling. It's not something that you necessarily need to use. I know for a fact some of the TradingWin staff actually likes to use the favorite trade slope values in the exploration so that they can see which ones have the biggest slope or the littlest slope. So it's available. You can use it if you want to. You don't necessarily need to. And I'd probably recommend, especially if you're new to the technique, not to use it initially, and then as you kind of are very comfortable with the technique, you can go ahead and throw that on a chart and see what it looks like. As we were talking about, we've got the two explorations. We've got the Vora Favorite Trade Trigger. The trigger is going to look for the stock or the futures or the Forex symbols that actually have a trigger on the current bar. That could be the current day or the current 5 minute, whatever you set your scan for. And you've got the setup scan. And that's going to basically look for stocks that have had Forex instruments that have had, futures instruments that have, whatever you're trading, a setup on either the previous day or within the last several bars and have a trigger today. So that'll be your one that you can use during the middle of the day to find a setup that's valid right now. Okay. The expert advisor is going to give you the commentary. It's going to put all the slope ribbon on the chart, and it's also going to give you the diamonds and the exit signals and all that kind of stuff. So there is an expert advisor that's included. And we've included two templates. We've included the Vora Favorite Trade and the Vora Favorite Trade with Slope. All this is available. It's only $499. Like I said earlier, it's been extremely popular among the TradingWin's students this year. It's a great methodology, and we do offer it to you with a 30-day money-back guarantee. I'd encourage you to try it. It's a great little product. See if you like it. The risk is not very high. In any case, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for using MetaStock if you do. And we'll see you on the next one.